So here at the Socially Used Studio, after every shoot, we sit around in the control room and we talk about what went good, what went bad, and what we could do better in the future. And we realized that we should probably record these things so we can actually remember what we said. And then we realized that this could possibly be good content for the people who view our channel. So come along with us as we learn, grow, and fail. And maybe you can learn something as we learn too. Welcome to the Debrief.
Welcome back to our team powwow. Today we filmed for Harris III. He is a great little client of ours. So today we're going to talk about what went right, what went wrong. So grab some popcorn, sit back, relax, and welcome to the show. It was a very chill morning. So I don't know how it was in here, but it was chill on my end, personally.
Yeah. There's always a little bit of panic mode when the client finally does sit down on the stage, because you can't really ever tell until they're sitting there what it's going to look like. And we had to go in there and place a hive light to get the right lighting from the previous video, and then also working with the key. It's you can't really do anything with the key until they're sitting there, and then it's like, all right, let's make it real, you know.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of, not as much on this one, but there was still that element of, okay, we got to make some things work.
Right.
Well,
Wait,
go ahead.
For context, just a real quick for context. Context is he has been here before.
This is what I was
Okay.
gonna say.
Okay. Yeah.
No,
Go ahead. Okay, yeah. So on this same set, and so the goal was to make it look very much like a very uniform product. So that's kind of a difference than what we've been doing before.
We've done that in the past. Like we have a double stack of televisions out there, and what we'll do is we'll put like what's on program and then what we shot last time. And so this is the first time that we've done that with a chroma key background, I believe. I don't think we've done that. So this is the first time that we were mimicking or trying to replicate an old set, but there were some differences on this one, which the last time we had a hard light coming off of the IntelliTech mega cloth. This time we had a scrim in front of it, and that threw a bit of a wrench in what we were doing, because it took a lot of light away from the table, so we had to deal with a lot of reflections. That was the main thing, and that's been a big pain point for us, I think, is using tables that are semi-gloss that have a reflection that becomes see-through because green is reflecting off of it, so the keyer catches it and takes that part of the table away.
We did a lot of work the day before trying to match the shots. So it was pretty cool. We used the ATEM to have the previous shot and the current shot, and we could fade them together so we could see both at the same time, trying to position the table and everything in the same place. Even the little props, we were trying to get that. And so once he got in there and brought his stuff in, we could use that same technique to position everything. And we realized, well, the camera was a little too high, so we needed to drop it back down and get it just the right angle. And we used the wood grain of the table to try to get the right angle on it. But having the ability to see them both together and then cut between them really fast, click, 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 made it where we could match them pretty better.
Totally. And so even though we did all that, though, it still felt like oh, it's a little high, the camera. Man, those how much did you end up adjusting the camera? Because it was like,
you mean the camera height?
Yeah, because it was tilting. Something about it was a little, like, I remember still feeling like
high. So we had looked. I think sometimes we look at it for so long,
right,
the day before, and then if you come in and look at it, you're like, that looks too high, and then we look at it and go, oh yeah, that is too high. Sometimes it takes this fresh set of eyes, Yeah,
there's two variables in that. It's the height of the camera, and then which way the camera's angled. So we were too high and we were pointed down, which the angle was wrong, but also you could see more of the table. But we had it lined up, so it's really confusing. You can't really explain it correct in words, because you could see more of the table, but it was lined up to technically the same amount of the table was filling the screen, but you could see, like, since we were aimed in, the angle made the table was a little bit longer. So we had to lower it and then even that out so that the table was shorter, but it was filling up the same amount of frame. My brain's broken trying
to... And also the guy that documented the last set. He didn't actually measure the most important measurement, which is the lens height from the floor and the lens height or the lens distance from the subject. So that guy, I could have a talk about that later with him.
Did we do that now? Have we done that post filming?
Well,
we sure will.
What else are we going to talk about?
We sure will. You're like moving on to the next topic.
I know.
Nothing
So
to
we
see here.
just struck the set, and we should have.
I don't know if this is easy to do, Morgan, but if you can bring up the Apple TV as an input, I can show a quick example that I think is worth playing. So right now, I'm trying to AirPlay to the Apple TV, so it must be a different input.
Studio 2.
Oh, Studio 2. It's because I don't know what I'm doing. See, that's the problem with getting management in here is that nothing really awesome happens. But here you go.
Oh, yeah.
So that's Tyler trying to sit. So it's kind of half Harris and half Tyler as Tyler was trying to
position my hands.
Yeah, I just... You're welcome. I'd appreciate seeing.
That does show. You can see the spacing in between where we had the table and where the table was, though. Whenever you back out on it.
Yeah.
Maybe sometime we should record us trying to position the camera. But it'll be a lot quicker next time because we'll have measurements.
You were
on the
so
right
still
side
for
of
so long. I'm like, what is happening? All right, thanks, Morgan. I'll turn it off now. That's hilarious. Okay, what? Well, so it did take forever. So the summary is it took forever. Some of that was us adjusting lighting. Some of that happened after he sat in, ready to go, and then he was
that
like,
on our end or his?
well, he saw his, so we show confidence monitors. So we've got a 55-inch OLED that he sees himself on. And then he was like, I look pretty dark in my eyes. And it was like, oh, but when we looked at what we'd actually shot before, it also looked pretty dark in his eyes. So it was like, well, so then I kind of messed with it a little bit. And he's like, ooh, I like that a lot more.
Well, and having somebody that knows about that kind of thing, a lot of other people would sit down and be like, they have no idea, but he knows what he wants it to look like.
Yep.
Go ahead,
No, you're good.
Jane. I was just going to say, they were very prepared. Well, let me say it. Once the scripts were done, they were very prepared. And so once he sat down, he was ready to go. And he gets to an energy level where he's ready to start. And so I think it can feel frustrating maybe if we're tweaking things.
Yes.
You did something where you were taking a still and you were keying from the still or something. Did you do that again on this one?
I didn't do it on this one because we were able to get him in right away before makeup. And it got me where it's like, I'm at 90%. Like, this feels pretty good. We have a lot going for his hair short, like some of the things that are the real tells of keying, I was able to not have to worry about. But yes, with Ultimate, you can freeze the foreground and then continue to key off of that. We don't see the movement, but still it's helpful to kind of get coloring and some of the other things dialed in. One of the things I noticed that we need to do better, just kind of going out of order slightly, is we need to already have confidence monitors thought through and mapped. Like, it was kind of like he was in there and then it's like, wait, does he see us? So this same system that we're using to record this video, where we're cutting to our different camera angles, we're using these same cameras to communicate directly with the talent on screen. And so that and a couple other things felt like it needed to be mapped. And it's like, oh, that should be a pre-check of like what monitors are where and what's on them. Now, the talent can always override that and say, like, I want to see this here, but it'd be nice to have kind of a default, like, yep, we're ready to go setup. So that was something It
is interesting too how a lot of times the talent doesn't feel like they don't feel like they can say, well, I want to see this and there, and we have to tell them, listen, we can put this here, we can put it back there. If this is bothering you, we can move it, we can put something else on that screen. So I think we have to communicate that to them at some point.
Yeah.
Harris is the only client that we have where I don't care if we use teleprompter or not. Somehow, he can read from the like, okay, I'm going to use the camera as an example. If what I'm saying is script, he can read from the teleprompter, look away, and come back to the script with no problem. And other people are laser focused, reading everything that's on the teleprompter. They never look away, and that's not how you have a conversation with somebody. So he does a really good job of not only improvising words, but reading, looking away, looking down like you would, to normal mannerisms, and coming right back up and picking up on the exact spot. And I can't do that. I don't know how he does it. It's really good. Because other people, it's just the teleprompter is just painful.
It was interesting because he would ask his staff, does this sound like I'm making this up? Which that's what he was going for. It sounded like, so that it would sound like he was just coming up with these brilliant things on the spot, and it did. He was able to act like that. It was pretty impressive.
And he pushes through stumbles really well, which is what we try to preach to people, because a lot of people come in here that use the teleprompter and they make their lives miserable by trying to be robotic and get it so perfect every single time. But we always try to tell people, like, hey, if you mess up a little bit, push through. I'm pretty sure we've talked about this on one of these debriefs before. And he has a really good skill of being able to kind of push through the awkward spots and nail it and just keep going. Morgan.
Yeah, I was a little bit more removed from this shoot.
Yeah, you were.
Because
Yeah, that's right.
Tyler was switching and punching, and you were running records. There was a little bit of pressure on, if he got done with this content, to have another set ready. So that's what I was kind of working on in the background as you guys were.
They had talked about that.
Yeah, they had talked about it, but he ended up
not needing it.
not
Or...
having enough.
Yeah, and I will say we got started late, and we did the same amount of videos the last time that they came here. So the last time that they came here, they did 4 separate sessions, 5 videos each. This time we did only 3, but one of those sessions had 10 videos. So even though we got started late, we were cranking them out. And one thing that we did really well, and I think we should include him at least once or twice on this debrief, hopefully if he's here in the future, is our audio engineer, Eric, was here this time.
Oh, yeah.
Well, not actually here. He was in Nashville, but he remoted in. And he was on the music. Every time we had a pause, he was turning the music up, and Harris loved it. And I think every client would love it. But Harris loved it to the point of he was talking about, like, you have to get up and move and create energy to be focused and to have like a higher drive to be able to get things done during the day and be more focused. And in the video, he referenced the fact that we were playing music between takes. And I thought that was really cool because and I think you said something, you were like, yeah, this is really good for this part. And then he brought it into the video, and I was like, well, if we've ever needed proof to realize that music does help people, that was it right there.
Yeah, man, it was so cool because Eric would fade it up, and then you would tell him, okay, give me about 10 seconds, and then fade it down, and then we could go ahead and record. It really worked well.
Yeah.
And I think part of that was Eric is now able to have a controller in front of him, just like we have here in the studio. So it makes it kind of mindless for him to be able to do that now.
Yep.
Easily.
Talk briefly, Morgan, about how audio works and how we do it here.
So our audio is all mixed remote out of Nashville, and we're using eMotion LV1 to mix all of it remotely, and they're listening through audio movers, and it's less than 0.2 of a second. Like, it's a very short delay for them, but all the processing and everything's done here locally. They're just remote controlling the mixer here in-house. So that's a really awesome process, because they're able to be in their studio and listen in a controlled, quiet environment, where here in the control room it can get really loud and people come in and talk. So we're not able to fully focus where they're able to really isolate. And I think Eric was giving you different notes when cars would come by and things like that.
Yep.
To really help with that.
Yeah, for sure. Eric's extremely detailed oriented. So I think I always make a joke if he can hear a fly land from a mile away through a microphone, and he'll let us know. The one thing I will say is we use Notion to do our notes now, and it's different. So, but what I used to do was a Google Sheet, and he could make his own column on the side.
Right.
And yesterday he was just texting me time codes, and I would go check them whenever I was editing them. But I guess we need to figure out some sort of way.
Some sort of column or something.
Yeah.
That was
So
stressing
he added something too about coming over to the speaker, and we're kind of addressing how that gets approached.
Yeah. So too many cooks in the kitchen is a real thing. And what we need to do is, typically it's me, if we're going to cut and we're going to do a retake, or we're going to have somebody pause, we need one person doing that. What he was doing was, since he didn't have anywhere to put the notes, he was making sure that I was getting the notes. So I told him, yeah, if that happens, come over the speaker and let us know. Well, I meant the speaker in the control room. He took that as stage. So he came in and cut Harris when we didn't, in fact, need to.
Yeah.
But that's ironed out. That was just confusion. I wasn't being very clear because I was doing 3 things at once. But I think now he has an understanding, and I think that should be the formula that we move on with. That we tell all of our audio engineers, like, hey, if you hear something, please let us know, not the talent, because we want to make sure that we keep them going.
And then another point of feedback that Eric brought up was on multi-projects where they're coming back. Some sort of notation of that on the calendar so that they can save their audio settings and have it align back up, because they're very passionate about getting that perfectly sounding the same. And we do the hyperdeck.
Yeah, that's
playback.
a good playback system.
So that they can hear and match the same level.
Yep.
So volume is consistent, because nothing's worse than when you're watching a YouTube video and goes to the next one and it's a completely different volume level.
Oh yeah. And blows out your speakers. Yeah. I think what Morgan is saying to those who are watching this, all 2 of you, what happens is sometimes,
hi, Mom.
what happens is sometimes one audio engineer will be on one date and one will be on the next, or it's the same one, but there's a significant amount of time between the 2, so things have changed on the settings. So like you said, the sound will be different. So what we do is what we record all of our takes on is a hyperdeck, which has an SSD in it, and we can play it back, and he can monitor that audio. So when we have our sound check, we'll get the talent on stage to speak, and then Morgan will monitor that plus the hyperdeck that's playing back that same talent who was speaking last time, and he'll get it as close as possible. And I just think that might have needed a
Jay,
small
that was
explanation.
stressing you though. At some point, I remember you were getting the texts, and you were trying to read the texts and put it in the notes, and
Yeah, it's frustrating because in between, I have a job to move the files over to where they belong, rename the next group of files, and start editing and do anything else that I'm asked of. If it's like, hey, we need this done or whatever. And a lot of times it's not that stressful, but it seems that every time it's like very complicated, Eric will try and come over, and he's not here, right? So he doesn't know what's going on. He wouldn't ever butt into a conversation, but he literally cannot see us, does not know what's going on in here. So he's asking me another question on top of that. And so I ask him, I always let him know, I'm like, hey, give me like 5 minutes and I'll get back with you. But sometimes I feel like the reason I get frustrated is because I want to answer his question, or I want to know what he's saying, and I want us to do the best job. So what's difficult is trying to handle all of that at once. And then sometimes I'm like, yeah, give me 5 minutes typing, and I do all the other stuff, and then we start recording, and I never ask Eric what he was even trying to tell me.
Right.
So sometimes that's where I feel the frustration, because I feel like sometimes he gets swept under the rug because of the other things that are going on. So
another thing that was going on was they had graphics, they had quotes inside the scripts that he wanted to show on the screen. And Andre, you were making those graphics, and we had to stop for each one and say, hey, does this one have any quotes? And we got into at least 1, maybe 2, where we had to stop and go, oh, wait, that's a quote. We need to get that graphic.
Well, there was two things. One was us realizing that we needed a quote, but then the other one was Harris going, oh, hey, I think we need that to be a quote. And I think that's where preparedness comes into play.
Yeah.
He's really good. We can work with him, but not everybody's like that. Not everybody's good on the fly like that.
The nice thing was he gave us a template. We already had a template, already had aesthetic attached to it. So if you look at this example, all I'm doing is pasting in. And then we're doing a cool thing here too, just to mention that. I'm playing it reverse right now, so let me just rewind. But we're cutting, so it's all happening in real time. So he's still there. We've just faded him out. So we've dedicated a camera to this shot. So we've purposely, I'm going to rewind it, purposely put him, and just pause it, out of focus, and we've darkened everything so that the text can be read clearly. But this is a cool look. I think this worked out really well, and it wasn't too bad. The only thing that made it extra hard is I had a totally different meeting that I needed to do, but I was kind of the only one doing this because of just the nature of the shoot. So it was kind of, I just was like, text me in the middle of that meeting. I'm building those slides real fast. So I think it was fairly seamless, but pretty funny thing to do for sure.
Or go ahead.
Toward the end, weren't they making the slides, or they had the template?
No.
Oh,
No,
that
so
was still me.
that's what I was actually going to say is I will give a shout out to Angie and Casey. They're both awesome. Casey was running teleprompter.
Yeah.
And she did a fantastic job. And then Angie was in here ready to assist us with anything that we needed. So when people have a good team like that, it really helps a lot, because when we did need those graphics, I would be like, okay, what do we, and before I could even ask, like, what do we need to do? She's like, I'm texting Andre. Yeah. And you would be already doing and send it over by the time I even knew like what it was. And it was loaded because you had ATEM software open.
Right.
You were making them, dropping them into the media player or dropping them somewhere. Presentation.
Keynote file, so I just was editing the presentation and saving that.
And so then we would just cut to it and it was done.
Right.
So that was nice. Whenever people bring people who are super competent and quick.
Right, and
that
just
helps.
to be slightly more nerdy for those that care, we're using Constellation ATEM Constellation 8K, so it has 4 MEs. So we used one of the MEs that we dedicated. So we went ahead and put the upstream key on, and then we just used a Luma key. So the background's kind of a dark black gray color anyway. So that keyed that out, and then we just composited that. So then that just became a button of just cut to ME3, which is the slides for you to be able to cut to.
Well, and also, so the other thing too that was, if that particular module or whatever had like 3 quotes, someone would have to advance to the next keynote slide, and Morgan was doing that. I kind of felt like I probably could have reached over and hit something, but at the time it was, I guess, more complicated to make that happen. Sure. So Morgan was doing whatever he was doing and also advancing to the next slide. I think at one point
I was listening and then we missed one or something.
Yeah, so I had to say, hey, Morgan, advance the thing. So, but it worked out. But it seems like, as much as I don't want to add another thing for me to do, I could advance that next slide and then have that ready.
Totally.
You were talking about MEs, speaking of, too, the weirdness of getting everything aligned. While it looks super square on video, it wasn't very square in real life. So before he annotated, it was okay. But when he started to write, the iPad was too far in front of him for him to write and understand. So he had to pull it back. Well, when we re-aimed the camera, it was, you could see the lip of the table coming in on the edge of the screen. So what we did was we cranked, here you go. So and he was on Dude Perfect, which that was kind of cool. Forgot about that part.
That's the first version.
Which remind me, actually, I never ripped that audio. I've got to figure that out.
Okay.
But what we did was we punched in on the screen and then centered it with ME3 or 4, whichever one we used, and then Tyler was cutting to that ME. So technically, if we could, we can't now, but if you were to look at that without us punching in on that, it was not centered, but we used the ME to correct, to make sure that it was centered.
Also, I was going to say, this is the first time the way we played the video was from the iPad. That was an interesting... that's an interesting angle. I'll pause it there, but just rewinding it. It's like, okay, that's cool. I've never considered, but it was kind of like, look, I'm showing you this video, but it's not so much that I'm cutting to this full screen. I don't know. That's a neat idea. Yeah, because it felt intimate. It's kind of, it felt like if I was sitting at the table with him, that's how I would have watched the video.
Does audio play a part in that? Because my question is so he's on a boom mic or a pencil condenser mic or whatever. I can't remember which one we're using. And so he's playing that audio. So it's like if you were to hear a cell phone video away from a microphone.
Right.
And in my head, I was like, okay, it was just us two. You guys were working on a bunch of stuff. So I didn't want to make it complicated. So I figured I would just rip the audio later and put it in there because I like being hacky like that. And, but would it have been a lot, Morgan, for us to have airplayed that to Apple TV and either cut to it, which I don't think I wanted to, but included the audio in there, like have that recorded somehow? Would that have been like too many moving pieces?
You could have played the audio over AirPlay, but the concern would be sync. I don't know how out of sync it would get.
Right.
Because that camera also wasn't going through an Ultimat, which... Ultimat's adding 5 frames of delay.
But we were cutting directly to that camera at that time, Yeah,
but it's still being... AirPlay has
its own delay.
Yeah, a number of latency.
So
we'd have to test it and see.
It'll be a cool
that's an option.
Yeah. Yeah, that was funny. What he talked about was interesting too. Go ahead.
So we do a lot of chroma key work, and just looking at Morgan's shot right now, I'm like, man, I got his key great. Oh wait, that's not a key. But we did get the key good. And so mentioning the key really quickly, just to kind of cut into that, if you cut over to you could see like, I mean, it's pretty tight. It feels pretty good. So one thing that I still didn't like was I had a little bit of a black outline over here, almost like imagine a Sharpie marker. It's more noticeable there. We're doing a punch on the wide shot, so that's. But you can see I'm going fast here. But okay, sorry. And then on the side shot, I think that turned out really, really great. I mean, even down to this individual hair that's kind of sticking out, you know. I can see a little bit when I pause on these bright backgrounds. I can see a little bit of that ghosting that you see there. But overall, when it's in motion, let's watch that again and just see how that feels. I think it felt pretty good overall. It's not super noticeable. And then on this shot, yeah, overall it felt really good. We've got a nice key light hitting him, and I don't know why glass is always so fascinating to look at, but that bottle looks really pretty good there. His book is like iridescent, so it was kind of doing some weird things, but I just made a couple of adjustments and had that where it felt good. So
What can you go back to the side shot? One thing I noticed was that so on the last shoot, which I think we've done it. I think we did a debrief for the last time.
okay,
That he was here, so we talked about it. But if you look in his glasses, so go back a few frames.
okay, yeah,
You can see the scrim here. Now I'm breaking the wall here. Well, you can see I'm ruining it. I'm so sorry. But you can see the scrim. Now when that was just a straight up IntelliTech, the way the IntelliTechs are built,
Right.
they are divided sections of LED that look like a window.
Right.
We lost that effect
did
with the
notice that,
scrim
yeah,
because
we
now it's just I
should've
I
put
noticed
tape
I didn't
on it.
point it out.
I was going
but-
to say Tyler has done that in the past where we've put some
Put some
tape.
gaff on there next time.
Could have mimicked that.
That would look cool.
That will be something to think about because he'll be coming back. So.
Food was great. Emma took care of us on salad.
Salad, that was great.
Only
Yeah.
request is more bacon.
Yeah, the bacon went fast.
I was wondering what
bacon.
happened to the bacon.
The bacon was gone, Morgan.
I'm like, Emma, the bacon. She's like, I put out the bacon.
It was
And
gone.
gone.
It was gone quick. Some more bacon next time. I personally don't like bacon, but it's not about me. So we're gonna add more bacon next time.
Hey, the cookies were great though, and the comment that she made,
The vegan cookies, keep
Yeah.
in mind. Nobody likes vegan cookies.
but they were warm.
but they were good.
They were warm, and they kept
Well,
saying that.
they were on like a health kick or whatever, and it doesn't mean when you say vegan it means healthier, but it makes you feel healthier. So I got them vegan cookies, and they were really good.
You sound like me talking to my wife.
Yeah.
The cool thing was Casey said as she picked up, you served them on our little tray that says socially you on it. She picked it up and she's like, she takes a bite. She goes, they're hot. Of course they are. So it's like,
Awesome.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So we've officially wasted 28 minutes of your life. If you're still watching, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back with more riveting content. Don't you worry. And if anybody has any words to say, now's the time. If not, hugs and kisses, everybody.
No dog today.
No
Like
dog.
such
A dog today.